Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready for this? Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's Wednesday, January the 8th, 2014, and welcome to the BCS Experience. History, arts, culture, and politics in review and discussion. I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with the most. The BCS Experience takes a look at our rich history, African American history. Now we're going to share with you some known and unknown historical facts and information from the past, and connect the dots on how they have impacted on our present day events and how they will definitely shape our future as African Americans in this country and around the world. The BCS Experience, history, arts, culture, politics, in review and discussion. This is Internet Radio and will be aired live every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. from the studios of the VW Moving Images on the GoPro Radio Network. You know, I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to you all across the country and around the globe. I want you to tune in every week on your computer or your phone. You see, I want you to become a loyal listener, and I personally invite you to lend your voice to this radio talk show, to express your opinions on my weekly topics. You know, this is social network radio at its finest. Now here's the number for you to call in to be a part of the discussion. Call 347-884-9839. Once again, that number to call, 347-884-9839. Wow, this week's topic, the JAG Project, tells the compelling story of how young Joyce Ann Gaines became an unwitting provocateur on the evening of August the 11th, 1965, of the horrendous L.A. Watts Riots. Now 50 years later, the untold story, right here on the BCS Experience. Well, my show is the new Underground Railroad, folks. Next stop is your neighborhood. All aboard to freedom and freedom land. Okay, before we meet my guests for tonight, a little bit of history, as always. The date, it's Thursday. It's January the 5th, the year 1804. You see, on this date in 1804, black laws were enacted in the state of Ohio. The Congress of the Buckeye State became the first legislative body in the country to enact black laws intended to restrict the rights of free blacks. Two groups supported the measure: white settlers from Kentucky and Virginia, and a growing group of businessmen who had ties to Southern slavery. All of them despised blacks. The legislation forced blacks and mulattoes to furnish certificates of freedom from a court in the United States before they could settle in Ohio. All black residents had to register with the names of their children by June the 1st, 1805. The registration fee was 12.5 cents per name. It became a punishable offense to employ a black person who could not present a certificate of freedom. Anyone harboring or helping fugitive slaves was fined $1,000, with the informer receiving half of the fine. So on January 25th, 1807, these laws were toughened, and other states followed Ohio's lead. The black laws remained in effect until 1849. Wow. Imagine that. Started back in 1804. Well, here we are, 21st century. January the 8th, 2014. Okay. So I want to hear from you, and let's connect the dots and make sense out of all of it. Let's talk and call me, 347-884-9839. So tonight, I have as my very special guest joining me in the studios of the GoPro Radio Network. Once again, let me welcome my very dear friend, all the way from the West Coast, Sistah Nedra, also known as Dorothy Holford, who is the producer of the JAG Project. She is also the creative director of KoolWorldMedia video production company. So, Sistah Nedra, welcome. Welcome to the BCS Experience. How are you, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you so much, Byron, and it's always such a pleasure to be with you.
Yes,
thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Now, you've been on this show before, and we kind of introduced this project to folks earlier. So for those who are not familiar, because we're going to ultimately play a little bit of the trailer, but let's talk about the JAG Project. Let's talk about it's 1965. What is the JAG Project, first and foremost?
Well, the word JAG, the acronym JAG, stands for the Joyce Ann Gaines story.
Yes.
And so the project centers around the events of August 11th, 1965, and what happened to Joyce Ann Gaines.
Okay. And the events were, let's take people back in a minute of time. It's 1965. The Voting Rights Act passed. Summer is hot. Laws. Now, you heard about that law I just shared with you about in 1804. So, you know, understand, and I think a lot of black people and a lot of white people all across the country need to understand these laws that were enacted back in that time were built on, because you had Jim Crow laws that followed. You had other laws that established a restrictive mood and mode of operation and transportation and movement within each of the communities where there were African Americans. So I got to give people a kind of bit of that history, Sistah Nedra, simply because some people think this incident in 1965 was just an anomaly that all of a sudden just happened because of an incident that happened instantaneously. This was built up rage, built up emotions, built up feelings of oppression and depression that exploded on this night in 1965. So let's talk about the Watts Riots. According to the notes and the historians, of course, they blame it on one thing, but let's go to the source. You have this story. What started the riots, Sistah Nedra?
Very much exactly what you explained. And what you explained in the technical sense is termed restrictive covenants.
Yes.
Covenants that restrict the lifestyle and livelihood and movement of a certain people within society. So when these laws were enacted, and they were reenacted and reenacted and reenacted, because, you know, in the 40s, it became known as the restricted covenants.
That's right.
And California, much of Southern California, were under these laws.
Yes.
So that is where a part of, just a small part of where the rage was built up.
Oh, okay.
Of course, laws, they wind up manifesting themselves in lack of educational resources, lack of jobs, lack of the ability to live where one wants to live. And we still see some of that today.
Absolutely. Not only do we see it today, some of those laws are still being built upon, like the stop and frisk law. That's not a new law, ladies and gentlemen. That is a law built upon these same laws enacted back in the beginning in 1804. You had the Fugitive Slave Law Acts. You had the same laws in place that picked up Solomon Northup out of the streets of Washington, D.C., a free man. So that people can begin to realize, wait a minute, this is not just something new. See, Sistah Nedra, I want people to realize when that riot started in Watts, it was just it was the straw that broke a camel's back. And so so the Joyce Ann Gaines story, which becomes quite a pivotal one, is that historically she was identified as one of the sparks that started it, and yet her story is nowhere near the unjust things that were happening prior to her arrest. So let's take us back, because that arrest itself, falsely arrested, what was she doing on that day? Why was she arrested? And then let's talk about how that exploded into a riot because of her being picked up from her barbershop.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Byron, that at the time of Marquette Fry's arrest, which was the catalyst that brought this crowd of angry citizens into the street, Joyce was actually in her father's barbershop, Gaines family barbershop.
Yes.
And she and a friend were getting ready for a party.
Okay.
They were getting their hair and what have you in order, like women, like we do,
yes.
you know,
yes.
and very excited about this house party that they were going to that evening. Joyce was 20 at the time.
Yes.
And they heard this commotion, and we've been on that location several times, and from her dad's barbershop, it's like 1 block away, and it was loud enough for you to hear in the barbershop. So
yes.
The friend first ran out, and Joyce was frustrated because she simply wanted to get ready for the party.
Yes.
So she ran out behind her friend, at first yelling for her to come back to the shop so they could get ready.
Okay.
And she walked into the crowd. Well, it became more escalated and more elevated as the moments and seconds ticked by. So Joyce stepped off of the curb to see what exactly was going on. Do you want me to go into the rest?
Go ahead, because, I mean, people don't know this story. This is 50 years later, folks. Yeah. And see, we need, you know what, Sistah Nedra? We gotta get the truth out. Let's get the truth out, because what's been written in those books and in the newspapers were lies, rumors in your windows, and they never told the story truthfully. So we are telling folks a moment of truth so that they can understand why the rage, why the frustration, and then ultimately let's clear Joyce's name, her family's name, and some of those people who were unfortunately tagged and targeted by the police department, the state of California, the Justice Department, and so on and so on and so on.
Exactly. Well, okay, so picking up, Joyce has now stepped off of the curb.
Yes. And
she's watching and looking and trying her best to see what is really going on in the center of all of this commotion. there was a police officer that was spat upon, and another police officer accused Joyce of doing the spitting.
Okay.
And then Vaughn, the motorcycle policeman, jumps off his bike and begins to accost Joyce, accusing her of spitting. Joyce ultimately gets manhandled and dragged into a police car. There was a tug of war between the crowd and the police. Joyce was about to be ripped in two because both sides were trying to keep her.
Okay, hold that thought, Sister Nedra. I gotta take a break. And when we come back, let's come back and reveal the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The views and opinions expressed on GoPro Radio Network shows are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. or its affiliates. These broadcasts are provided on the understanding that they do not constitute professional advice or services. Individuals who speak in these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions. GoPro Radio Networks and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in these broadcasts. You may not edit, modify, or redistribute these broadcasts in any way without the express permission of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. GoPro Radio Networks assumes no liability for any of your activities in connection with these broadcasts or for your use of these broadcasts in connection with your website, computer, or playing device.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, we're back on the BCS Experience. I'm telling you, we're exposing the truth, okay? And the year is 1965. Man, we had some of the best music in the world going on. Motown was kicking it, okay? We were going to the go-go, all right? So now we're talking back with Sistah Nedra, and she's going to tell us that night the Watts Riots got started. We were just told that Joyce Gaines was put in the back of a police car, roughed up by LA police. Go ahead, continue the story. We have another caller on the line, but before you tell that story, let me bring the caller in. Good evening. Welcome to the BCS Experience. And who might you be? This is area code 770. Who are you?
Well, good. I guess this is Ernest Hopkins. I'm calling from Executive Orders, LLC. We're out of Atlanta, Georgia, and we're a part of the production process for the documentary for the Joyce Ann Gaines project.
Excellent.
I just wanted to say, what an honor it is for us. I know that we're here on the East Coast, but it is certainly an honor to be a part of the project. And I know Sistah Nedra has done so much work. It's incredible. We've done our research and our homework here, and we're just overjoyed to be a part of the process and to kind of expose some of the atrocities that took place in 1965 and during the riots. And so I congratulate her on her work. What a wonderful job. And we're going to move forward as a community and continue, getting this word out and educating people on that day.
Well, thank you so much. And again, what's your name?
Ernest.
Ernest.
Last name is Hopkins.
Okay, Ernest.
Yes.
And thank you for being a part of the BCS Experience, as well as being a part of her team of production strategists and technicians. It's so important that we tell this story and get it out.
Just an honor, absolute honor to call in.
Absolutely. So, let's get it back to Sistah Nedra. Sistah Nedra, you had framed the story for us about what was happening to Joyce Gaines that evening. Let's go back. We're in the police car. They have just put her into the car. What next?
Well, what is interesting about all of this is that Joyce was wearing a smock. And at that time, for female barbers, the smock was like that of a swing coat.
Yes.
And somehow it got into the mindset of the crowd that Joyce was pregnant.
Okay.
Now, mind you, just a year or so earlier, there was the Fred Detweiler case where he was trying to transport his pregnant wife to the hospital, pulled over by the police and killed. And so here we have another pregnant woman, but this time it's the woman being manhandled. And so I believe that would be the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay?
So the community thought they were arresting a pregnant woman. That's what.
Yes.
So that the appearance of that, and then roughing up this woman, and then of course the rumors and the innuendos spread like wildfire.
Yes, it did, and it left Avalon and moved into Watts proper.
Yes.
It's interesting to note that the actual riot did not begin in the area that Joyce's father's barber shop was located.
Okay.
It began several miles away in Watts, and this is how quickly it spread what had happened. And by 6 o'clock that evening, fires were being set.
Yes. That's an incredible notion, because when you read the history books and Burn Baby Burn, you don't see this story. This story is never even mentioned, and yes, she is part of the record, but the truth has been buried for 50 years. Sistah Nedra, Ernest, I applaud you guys for standing tall for truth, and we can expose this. Now let's move it a little bit forward. Let's talk about the documentary, because this has been in the works for a little bit now. Where is the documentary, and how does it stand to its completion? Because I want to be able to play a portion of the trailer after you share this information with us, so people can actually begin to make a connection. So Joyce, tell me about the timeline of this documentary.
Okay, the timeline is simple. I'll try to make it as brief as possible.
Okay.
The documentary was ratified on April of 2011.
Yes.
We immediately formed a team of phenomenal advisors for the project. By June, we were sitting down to the table at First Generation Studios in San Francisco and commencing our first production meeting.
Okay.
Roles were assigned, and everybody had an action plan going forward. We're currently 75% done. We have just a few things that need to be taken care of so that we can go into post-production.
Okay.
Meaning having all of the footage that we have, all of the information that we have, photos that we have, put together in a rough cut, and from that we birthed a full-length documentary that would be worthy of any television big screen broadcast around the world.
Do you have a release date target yet?
We have a release date of August 2015, which is the 50th anniversary of the Watts Riots.
Okay, so we're a year and a few months out, and along the way, because I've been keeping up with the story, you have a website. Let's tell people how they can get in contact and touch base with you, because I know you're still raising funds too. So let's generate a lot of interest and maybe some extra dollars to help completion. So tell them where they can see more about this story.
Well, the website is www.jagthedoc.com, and that would be JAG the THE doc, D-O-C as in documentary.com, jagthedoc.com, and everything that you need to know is there, including the trailer, and we also have a donation button that goes direct to the San Francisco Film Society, which is our fiscal sponsor.
Okay. And this will help you bring it all to closure, as always, and obviously. Now, you have reenactment scenes, I understand, and one of the actors, is that still on the table for part of this docudrama itself? You have some of those reenactment scenes to film?
It is an absolute must, in my creative opinion, that we do these reenactment scenes, and this is the most costly part of the production outside of post-production.
Okay.
Yes, Joyce has this rich history that meanders all the way from the 1926 Oklahoma riots.
That's right.
Where black people were the target of anger and hatred. all the way up to her family settling in California and ultimately in L.A.
So let me understand this. Joyce has roots in Oklahoma because you know I am in the production of Black Wall Street, which talks about the riots of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where white
I saw that, and I was like, oh my God, this is so divine in the way it's panning out. Yes, her family was tragically impacted by those riots, which promoted her uncle, father, and her mother to migrate here
from Oklahoma. So as you see, because I want people to realize when some of these incidents like this happen, historically, you see there is such a disconnect with us as African Americans to our history. We have got to connect these dots, and this is not just a happening by circumstance. There is no such thing as an accident in circumstantial happenings. It is all in divine order. And now that the truth is being revealed, I just find that extraordinary. I mean, you just shared with me a piece of her story, Joyce Gaines' story, with a reenactment of a production that I'm currently in rehearsal for right now of Black Wall Street. And if you don't know that story, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand Tulsa, 1921. White folks went wilding, and they literally destroyed the entire Greenwood Black community of Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was identified at that time as probably the richest Black community in this country. They had oil on their lands. White folks were coming to them to borrow money. And white folks destroyed that town. Now, here's another piece of that history which we need to understand, because when we come back after the break, I got to take a break in 4 minutes, they say, or less. When we come back after the break, we'll play the trailer to the JAG story, because I want people to get a chance to see just how well you have documented this. Your film crew is a great crew. You've got experts, professionals working on this. So this is no fly-by-night YouTube presentation. This is some good stuff, folks, and needs to be seen.
Thank you.
So, the reality of it all is in when we tell these stories. Let me just give you a brief piece of history that nobody seems to remember. In this country, since our being here, Black people have never rioted and destroyed a white community. I'm going to repeat that, because when the Trayvon Martin verdict was sent down, you may recall the community and the state of Florida was calling the NAACP and the ministers, please don't burn down our community. We don't want no riots. We don't want any problems. So please advise the Black folks not to do anything, social misbehavior. Well, let me just remind people, in the history of the entire history of the United States since 1776, Black people have never rioted and burnt down a white town. Period. But when you look at the history of how many of our Black towns have been literally destroyed by white people, it is unimaginable how many. Because it's not just one. I mean, there are dozens. From Rosewood to Lawrence, Kansas, to Greenwood or Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's Rosewood. I'm telling you, it's dotted all across the country.
Georgia. It wasn't a riot, but all of the land was taken from every Black farmer there.
Right. Atlanta, Georgia. The riots of New York City. The Civil War. What they call the Selective Service riots, when they were recruiting people for the Civil War. White folks just went wilding in the Black community. Okay? So when we talk about the riot, the 1965 riot in Watts, that incident sparked over 126 riots all across the country. And when we say riots, let's just say upheavals of angry people because there were these incidents took place in our black community. We were just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Well, listen.
Right.
I gotta take a break here. When we come back, Sistah Nedra, we're gonna play that intro into the your documentary because it needs to be seen, and then we'll pick it up after that. So, folks, you're listening to the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. Don't go away. We will be right back.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have a product or service, a talent or something important to say, now's your chance to have your own radio show. Whether you're just starting out or a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We'll help you to grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 today or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your own radio show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
So when we talk about the conditions of hopelessness, helplessness, feeling dispossessed, that breeds a rage in me.
We were in the midst of the Watts Riot. I remember the damaged buildings. You could see the smoke. All of the liquor stores, no longer liquor stores.
They were riding right in front of my house.
Nothing but people out on the streets. Everybody looking for something to do.
It looked as if it was a war zone.
We put up Owned by Soul Brothers and black-owned business.
As many as 10,000 Negroes took to the streets in marauding bands.
Everybody's in a frenzy and explosion of just rage and anger. Everybody was upset.
The rioters seem to have been caught up in an insensate rage of destruction.
And it was sort of like a crowd mentality. It's part of it.
But then in my lifetime, we've had the Rodney King uprising right there in the same community.
Between 1965 and 1968, there were several insurrections in the urban cities.
Bringing forward to Oakland and what happened here with the shooting of Oscar Grant.
The next thing I know, they're pulling me out of the crowd. I read the paper, and it stated that the first rock was not thrown until after my arrest. So I had to kind of carry that weight. Whew. On my shoulders. I wanted my life to be more than a riot.
Wow. All right. Sistah Nedra. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Sistah Nedra, you got a piece there. Thank you for letting us even engage in touching on that a little bit. Because ultimately, this story must be told, just like the Solomon Northup story. You understand? And we are in a period now where the truth and our stories are making a difference. And you know what I find really interesting, Sistah Nedra, is that all of the elements that sparked the Watts Riots are right back into play right now. We are dangerously close to another insurrection because of, let's talk about it. Congress refuses to pass the unemployment extension. They refuse to indulge in even creating a jobs bill. They talk about cutting food stamps. They're cutting programs that help support the poor person. And yet they keep giving themselves tax breaks, tax breaks, tax breaks. And this country is going to hell in a fast boat. And I'm telling you, anything right now can help tip that right back into that mindset and that explosion of anger. And let's add something else on top of it. White folks have been collecting guns by the millions.
Yes.
So who's preparing for what? Are they pushing us towards the riot like they did in Los Angeles? Because Rodney King happened years afterwards under the same sort of kind of situations. So, Sistah Nedra, what do you think we've learned from all of what you've been researching, or what is it that we are not learning? Come on, from your point of view.
Okay, I wanna address the idea of programs and what have you to the poor being cut.
Yes.
The mindset when politicians and officials get elected that promise to do these types of evils,
yes,
the mindset is that they will cut and this will hurt black people. But in all truth, there are at least 6 times more whites on food stamps and welfare in this country than there are blacks. Blacks only make up 11% of the population.
That's right.
And it you know, when you do evil, it backfires. You know, so that's one thing. The second thing is, yes, we still live in islands in this country.
Yes.
There are still communities, and depending on the community, you can see the disparities and the differences in the wealth of those communities. You can see, like right here in San Jose, we have a vibrant Vietnamese community.
Yes.
And all of the businesses in that community are owned by Vietnamese.
Okay.
But now let's go to West Oakland.
Yes.
And see who the businesses in West Oakland are owned by. 90% are not owned by the people of West Oakland, or people who look like the people in West Oakland.
Yes.
So you're spot on in identifying that we are very close. And these are the things that make people angry, and these are the things that make people hopeless, and these are the things that make people feel that they don't have any power.
Yes.
But what is important concerning this documentary and others like it is that we tell our own stories, which is something else that you rarely see.
Yes.
It is, I just can't express how important it is. I do not want to see Joyce and her story depicted as it was in Burn Baby Burn.
Right.
I do not want the Watts Riots depicted as it was in the original Life magazine article that came out a week or so after the riots. It was gut-wrenching for me to read what was said about us in those reports. And then they revisited the report a year later, and that is when Joyce's name came into play. However, Joyce never gave an interview in almost 50 years.
Right.
No one ever talked to her. All of their information came secondhand, or they found somebody they could give $10 to talk about her.
Right. So based on rumor, innuendo, and conjecture. That's basically how that story came out. And so that's why I'm saying it to you now. This story, 50 years later, is so important, because if we can get it out there into the minds of our young people and those who are currently suffering the arrows and throes of unemployment and frustration, so that they can understand that we can make other choices. That's what we're going to have to do. We as a community annually spend $1.7 trillion a year. We don't need government support. We need to continue to keep our support in our community.
Yes.
That will create jobs. It will create sustainability, build homes, keep families together, and keep the crime level down. Okay? Because let's be honest with each other now. They're building prisons not for them. They're building them for us.
Oh, yes. We take up most of that real estate.
Yes, we do. And that's
we
more.
Take up most of that real estate.
And the fact that it's a public...
You know, I mean, when I go to school and I see the lack of black men on my campus, you know, it's kind of hard for me. It's hard for me, you know, because I know what buildings they put in place for them.
Yes, because the statistics for 2012, 2013, and now going into 2014 all say that there are more black men in prison than there are in college.
Exactly, and I am a witness to that every day that I walk onto my campus. And the majority of the black men that I see on the campus are athletes.
Yes. More paid slaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's a piece of history.
Now, mind you, I believe that most of them work very hard.
Oh, yeah.
And it may be the only ticket that they had to college. But I believe that we need a fair playing ground so that all of our men are encouraged and given the tools and resources to attain a degree.
Absolutely.
You know, or at least be able to start their own businesses and start their own nonprofits and what have you. But I really fear that if this keeps on the way it is, that we will be an extinct race of people within 100 years.
You're right. But let's be also mindful the history of our people in this country. We have not just been rolling over and laying dead and letting people just take advantage of us. We have been in a fierce struggle for quite some time, because here's a piece of history. I want to share this with you. The date, it's Tuesday. It's January the 8th. The year is 1811. And on this date in 1811, black slaves rebelled against their white masters in Louisiana. Charles Deslandes and other slaves began the revolt on the plantation of Manuel Andre. See, Deslandes plantation surrounded the Andre plantation. Charles was a field laborer on the Deslandes plantation where he was born. And at the time of the revolt, he was about 31 years old. The Andre plantation was the site of an arsenal for the local militia, and on the night of January 8th it began to rain. But the rebels stuck to their plans. They began by overwhelming Gilbert Andre and his son, and after they discovered that the arsenal had been removed, they killed Andre's son. Colonel Andre was spared. He was spared. Okay? Interesting to note, though, is that this uprising, most of the owners did not flee to New Orleans. They crossed the river to assemble the militia, and the 5th Militia Regiment under Major Charles Perret began chasing the rebels at around 9 a.m. on January 9th with only 21 men. And when they discovered the rebels camped on the farm of Jacques Fortier, numbered about 200, he returned to Judge St. Martin's house to report that what he saw. The militia gathered more men and planned to attack the rebels early next morning, and the rebels were able to cross about 25 miles before being stopped on January the 10th by U.S. troops from New Orleans. And that morning, Major Perret, with only 60 men, attacked the rebels. After the initial volley, most of them surrendered. So another slave revolt put down. But understand this, folks. These uprisings are more about revolt than riot. So we need to start calling them a different word, because a riot implies out of control situations. An uprising is a different kind of word, because it implies those who are being oppressed and who are seeking freedom. So we must continue the fight. We stand on the shoulders of some very strong kings and queens. Okay? The story of life is about Africa. Joyce Ann Gaines is one of those princesses and princes in her family who come from a tradition, a standing tradition of wanting and seeking and searching for freedom. And now Sistah Nedra, a filmographer, has a documentary that will show the truth of the 1965 Watts Riots. All right, I got to take another break here. It's time for me to take that break. But when we come back, we're going to finish up Sistah Nedra. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to drive people to the site so that they can understand and appreciate your professional work on this project. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're on the BCS Experience. We're talking about the riots. We're talking about freedom. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
GoPro Radio, the fastest growing network in the galaxy, is leaner and meaner with a new attitude, new technology, and a brand new lineup. Tune in and get wired every Wednesday, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern with the BCS Experience featuring Byron C. Saunders, formerly of New York City's WBAI. Then at 6 p.m., it's the Black Agenda TV Express featuring sought-out political commentator Glenn Ford, formerly of America's Black Forum. Then at 8 p.m., it's time for Kay Thompson Live with the legendary radio host Kay Thompson of Inner City Broadcasting's WLIB and her son, renowned actor Eric Payne, who starred in such films as Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, Drop Squad, and many more. Then at 9 p.m., it's Food Rap featuring Nina Markel, a.k.a. the unofficial mayor of Jersey City, and former Viacom marketing guru Shauna Glover. Last but not least, at 10 p.m. Eastern, it's the Sexy Party Show with the bad boy of dating Mr. Locario of I Love New York fame and his partner in crime, Miles Cunningham. So get wired every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern only on the GoPro Radio Network, www.goproradio.com. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Okay, we're back on the BCS Experience, and I want to thank a big shout out to all of my supporters, so that we realize why, because this is listener sponsored radio. Okay, so I've got some great supporters: Carol Maylard, Yael Reed, Stanley Mathis, Linda Martin, Shelley Peterson, Margaret and Robert Spinello Vitano, Leon and Judy Shepard King, EBM Productions, and my good friend Byron Hardin. All have been supporters who keeping me on the air. And you want to know how they did it? Let me tell you. Just go to www.goproradio.com. We need your support. I need your support. Click on that donation button and make a donation to sustain this radio network. It's the fastest growing network in the universe. And I do again thank you so much for being my sponsors and supporters. Show me some love, and I'll continue to keep showing you some love. All aboard! Underground Railroad, making stops in your neighborhood to freedom and freedom land. All right, one more thing. We've got Disappearing Voices, the decline of black radio. You need this in your library. Get it, because it's literally talking about what we are continuing to do here at GoPro Radio Network, so that we can keep black radio alive. And don't forget, you also have On the Move sounds inspired by Mumia Abu Jamal, a political prisoner in the United States. We need to make sure we get the message out about our political prisoners and those who have stood up for us ever since we've been in this country. All this you can get at BWMovingImages.com. BWMovingImages.com, and tell them you heard it on the BCS Experience, and we'll even get it autographed for you. Okay, we're back. I've got Sistah Nedra on the line. Sistah Nedra, because you're probably listening to the show on your computer, I'm getting an echo. So if I can get you to turn the volume down on that, or on your phone, you might be on your speakerphone, but it's okay. You're coming through loud and clear. I just trying to keep some of the distortion down. Anyway, we're back. The last few minutes here. Let's talk about the documentary and some of your key personnel and artists who are involved, because let's give them the big shout out. You know, you may not win the Golden Globe Awards, but you are winning the Underground Railroad Award. Okay? Talk to me. Who are some of these people who have helped make this possible?
Okay, I want to send a shout out to my co-producer, Christine Lowe.
Yes.
As well as my life partner, Leonard Smith, who is our director of cinematography.
Okay.
Also, my mentors, you included, Herb Ferret, Warren Hawk, Debbie Brubaker, Linda Fuchs, Jeff Warwick, oh my God, Dr. Enid Lee, who is just phenomenal. You know, one of those women I'd like to do the Vulcan mind meld with.
Ooh, okay.
All of my professors at De Anza Community College, Dr. Julie Lewis, Dr. Veronica Neal, Michelle LeBlanc. I just have so many that I can never think of everybody at the same time. Of course, our actors, Charles Bullock, who has also been a dear, dear friend to me.
As mine as well.
And Charissa Watley, who will be playing the role of Joyce at 20 years old. And I want to thank Joyce for trusting me, you know, because this is major. This is not something you just give to anybody. I want to thank her for being my dear friend for over 25 years. Trusting me with this secret for 25 years, and then allowing me to be the one to bring it to the screen.
Absolutely.
It's humbling. It really is humbling.
Let's not forget.
A shout out to my groups on Facebook and the groups that I belong to, and my friends on Facebook who keep me motivated. It's just, you know, everybody that's been a part of this and been a part of my life, all that they contribute to me is what keeps me going. The project is not about me. And quite honestly, it's not about winning awards. It's about reaching people one at a time. And changing perspectives to what is this. One at a time.
I like that. And let's not forget Ernest Hopkins, who called in from the East Coast. He's one of your strong supporters.
That's what I'm saying. I thought I had said Ernest. I've been so busy typing love you notes to him on Facebook while we were talking. I may have missed that, but he knows.
Shout out.
You know, and do you know that this project has caused me to reconnect with people, because Keith Glover, the brother of Carlos Glover, I worked with them almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
And I saw Keith post something, and I'm like, is your brother Carlos?
See there?
Yeah, and you know, now he and I are in talks about what he can do to help the project. So, I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's what I talk about, being divinely positioned for something. Amen. And just simply showing up and trusting. You know, just simply showing up, staying humble, and trusting.
All right, let's give out that website information again, and any details that we can wrap this up so that we can get people to tune in to you, Sistah Nedra. Go ahead.
And thank you to Lynn Sloan, whose show I'm going to be on this weekend.
All right.
You can find that on the website at www.jagthedoc.com.
All right.
www.jagthedoc.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And Byron,
yes,
before the night is out, we're going to talk about getting together again, I hope.
Absolutely. We are going to move this ball forward. Well, folks, this is the BCS Experience. It's GoProRadio.com, your social network's live talk radio show, produced and sponsored by BW Moving Images. Tylon U. Xavier, Washington producer. Ayanna L. Jones, executive director. Thank you to my line engineers, Shauna L. Glover, production assistants, Mohammed L. Safti, Nina Markow, Tatiana Washington, and a very special thank you to the Jazz Lounge Project and Andrew Julian Myers for my fabulous show's theme music. Hey, your support of BW Moving Images is important to all of us. Don't forget, DisappearingBlackVoices.com. Get it today. Tune in next Wednesday when my show will be on from 5 to 6 p.m. Coming up next is Black Agenda TV Express, 6 to 6:30, featuring Glenn Ford, Ayanna Jones, and Bruce Dixon, followed by the Earl Morgan Hour from 7 to 8. Check out Kay Thompson Live with your hostess Kay Thompson from 8 to 9, and then stay tuned in from 9 to 10 when, oh my goodness, hot off the stove, Food Rap with Shauna Glover and Nina Markow. Then you can close the evening before you pull the covers up over your head with the Sexy Party Show, hosted by Mr. Lucario and Pavion O'Connor, right here on the GoPro Radio Network. Hey, I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with the most. You're still important to me because you're my special friends, my listening audience. Well, I'm out of here. For the moment, peace and love, always. The BCS Experience.